Okay, today we're going to be talking about passive income. I've got Chris here. We're going to change things up. The first couple episodes were a little awkward because I'm just staring at a camera, so I'm bringing a human being in, and we'll see how this flows and go with it.
I think this will have a nice little touch to it.
Yeah,
it'll be it's taking the lecture, but it's also taking like the conversation that can be kind of created from this.
Right.
So.
And in fact, I think that's one thing I really want to mention is my motivation for doing this is about trying to inculcate freedom, trying to encourage individuals to be free. And financial freedom is only one piece of that, but being free with their time. And so I think I want to explain that's where I'm coming from, that I want people to know that they can be free. You don't have to live the rat race. And there's just a few simple techniques and tricks for living your life that way.
Perfect. I'm excited to hear this and kind of see where all this is going. So let's get started.
Good deal. Well, just as a sort of a quiz, what do you think passive income is?
From my knowledge of it, it is when your money's pretty much working for you. So that would be like having a, say like an Airbnb, or if I had like a digital workshop. It's something that I don't have to put any energy towards. I built it in the past and now it's feeding me.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It's the opposite of active income. It's the opposite of trading your hours for dollars, right? Okay. And it happens when you're asleep, like we said in one of the previous episodes. Passive income is coming in even if you're dead, which is just weird to think of, but it's true, and it makes all the difference in the world for getting free, right? Yeah. So good. So you passed the first quiz. So let's talk about some examples of passive income. You mentioned like it could be a rental. Airbnb is a good example of a rental. Stock dividends, which is a little more technical. Not everybody has stock portfolios, but nevertheless, that would be passive income. It's growing even when you're asleep.
When you're sleeping. So previously I used to have, when I was in nursing and I had stability, I had a mutual A, a mutual B, a 401k, and maybe a life insurance. That might have been the mutual A. Then I started entrepreneurship and lost all that. I had to take all that out and invest in a business that crashed. So what is the form of like passive income for, say, like early stage entrepreneurs or somebody in kind of the situation where we're working on security, stability, runway, and then also creating a passive income stream?
Yeah. No, it's a good example or a good question. I think one example is you've got to be creative. Like the entrepreneur's mind and this sort of financial freedom mindset is about changing the equation. We talked about the equation of freedom being your cost of living is less than your passive income, right? Yeah. And so this is fundamentally a mind trick rather than an investment protocol, right? So a mind trick says, I need to figure out ways to turn liabilities into assets, right? And so we talked about this in some of the other episodes, but a good example for here, let's say you're just starting out and you've got an apartment, right? You don't even own a house yet, but you got an apartment, right? You got that. You're just starting out, but how do you turn that into some kind of passive income? You might think, well, that's impossible. I got to pay rent on it no matter what. That is true, but what if you decided, this next weekend, I'm going to get out of town. I'm going to go stay with my uncle and aunt or stay in a tent someplace. And I could put a listing for this apartment, assuming it's legal, put it up on Airbnb. Yeah. Like in that one weekend, and assuming you get it booked, like suddenly it becomes an asset, right? So it's not really about changing everything. It's just about looking at things differently.
Yeah, changing your perspective. I see what you mean. Yeah, we got a couch, like $50 a night on VRBO or Airbnb. You just got to always be on the prowl for how can I turn things to my advantage. So I'll give you an example here at this house. I mentioned in the first episode, which is this is a pretty nice house, but I made the choice as a sort of passive income focused dude to say, hey, that basement is just sitting there. We almost never use it. What if I finished it out? It's already got a separate walkout. What if I finished out and turned it into a rental unit? And it's amazing. I mean, this house cost me $1,200 a month in a mortgage, payment. But each month I get $800 a month in rent from somebody.
So I live in this house, this nice house, for $400 a month. That's flipping crazy.
I like how you said that too. Just that right before this was how do you change your perspective to shift everything? Because I think we do get stuck of looking at one angle, like I have to pay rent once a month. It costs me $500.
Right.
Oh, but I do like to go out of town. What if I went out of town and booked a trip for $100 but charged somebody $200? I just made $100 by getting out of my own place.
Exactly.
Simple.
Exactly. So we talked about this, you and I, offline a little bit about your situation and about sort of your cost of living.
Yeah.
About your net worth, which we calculated out, and you're not abnormal at all. In fact, you're probably better than average.
Good.
In that your net worth, what do we calculate? It was minus $58,000.
Yeah, it was about negative 58. Right. But I think now we're sitting at about negative 50. We'll go 56.
See, 56. I love this. You've taken a first step because you knew that score.
Well, it's funny you said that. You said as soon as you realize it, you'll see it start decreasing. And I kid you not, I was like, all right, well, we'll see. I'm optimistic. I got paid for a wedding. I got paid for a workshop. And I'm like, look at those assets growing. So it happens. And it's crazy to see that much that quick. Yeah. But then like you were saying, or getting towards like the biggest liability or knocking off liabilities one by one. That's what we had a really great conversation on.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's about looking at the things you have and realizing which are assets and which are liabilities. We tend to not even think about them. We just say, oh, well, it's a car. It's just a car. Well, it's a car, but it's also a liability in this case. So you talked to me about your fancy A5 Audi,
I love
which
it,
you love.
I hate it. I hate it as much as
because
I love
it. Because why do you love it? You love it, I suspect, because it's a sexy, fast car. It's fun to drive. Yeah. All those things are good for the ego. And that's what's good about the good life.
No, I'm glad you said it. My ego loves the A5. My spirit hates it because it causes me stress. Right. It's an Audi. If it breaks, it costs more. It's getting higher mileage. The clutch is almost going out in it. And previously I put 3 water pumps in it and had $2,000 worth of oil work done on it. Right. And I was like, and now it's at the point where the timing chain might need to be changed. Like I said, the clutch, the tires, like I probably have, I guess, $3,000 to $4,000 in maintenance coming up on it. Plus I'm, what do we say, $5,000 under on it? Yep. That's like $9,000.
Yeah. So let's clarify that for the audience. So he just said he's $5,000 under on it. Underwater, right, is when you actually owe more than it's worth, right? That's a bad position to be in. It's
not a good spot.
You don't want to be there.
I don't want to be there.
Right? Especially so how do we get you out of that? How do we get you out of that hole and turn the Audi in the liability column into something in the asset column? So there's a couple options that just pop out at me. Yeah. And you could decide what to do with them. Like, one is you could just go ahead and sell it. Like you're a photographer, you're good at this stuff. You could put a super jazzy nice car ad out there and get it sold for the top of what the market can bear. Right now, the used car market is like really, really strong. So it's a good time to do it.
Heck yeah.
You could turn it into cold hard cash. Now, granted, you owe more than you're going to get in that cash, but you're still you're not losing ground anymore. Right? You've at least stopped the bleeding.
Which is the hard part to say. Like, looking at it that way, I am losing ground, but I'm also gaining ground because say I only owed $1,000 on it after I get out of it, then I don't have to pay that $4,000 in maintenance now. Right. Because then I'd be, $5,000 plus 4. So now I'm $9,000 under in it. Right. Plus I'm,
Right. What do they say when you find yourself in a hole? First, stop digging.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Right. And that's a key step. Right. But that little exercise we did of calculating your net worth helped to clarify your thoughts. And in the very moment of clarifying your thoughts and putting things out sort of, for the real world to see, you suddenly begin to see the universe doing strange things to you. And I swear it's, I'm not the super magical hippy dippy guy, but I swear it's true that there's something magic about tracking what you spend that automatically changes it and makes it work better.
Yeah, I think the simple thing is like where you pay your attention is what pays you back, essentially. And if you're aware of it, you're already starting to decrease the liability of it or grow it in a positive manner towards whatever you're trying to get out of. Right. A guy once said, if you worry about paying back your debt your whole life, you'll be in debt your whole life. But as soon as you worry about creating more opportunities to financially increase, you're getting out of debt. Yeah. It's like digging versus like stop digging, start climbing.
Right. Right. And I think you've turned a corner. Like you've turned a mental corner just in that 5-minute back of the envelope exercise, because you're already telling me that now your assets have gone up. That means your net worth has gone up. Even if it's relatively slight, you're on a new glide.
It's on a new trajectory. And crazy enough, this is the crazy thing. I think I told you this. I don't know if I told you about the car call I got, but a buddy of mine who I filmed with last week called me and said, hey, got a guy needing to make a car detail video. If you want your car detailed like all the way inside and outside, I was like, these things happen.
You can't make this stuff up, right?
No.
It's just incredible to me.
Then I go and get my oil changed at Valvoline, waiting for a store to open up. And not only did they tell me that I had 5,000 more miles because they marked it wrong, because I got a 12 to 15,000 mile oil in it, I guess I wasn't aware of. The guy there's like, dude, this is a nice car. Oh, and it's a stick. You'll be able to sell this on Facebook Marketplace in a day for like, he goes, dude, these things are scooting. And I was like,
yeah, it's amazing, right? Yeah. Just those little action steps, and this leads to a whole mountain of change in your life. And suddenly you find your net worth not only negative, but going into the positive. And eventually, again, this isn't necessarily the the be all and end all, but eventually you'll be a millionaire, right?
No, exactly.
And then you can really sort of look around at the world from a different vantage point. You're no longer scrabbling for jobs.
Yeah.
You can do what you want to do. But again, the point here is that you are now free. Like if you can be free to do what you want with your time, that's a gift almost no one has.
Yeah.
And you can do it if you start those habits now, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the big takeaway. So real quick, just thinking out loud.
Okay.
What's another way you could turn your car, which we've already acknowledged is a liability, and it's a liability that's going to continue to eat your net worth every day it sits there.
That dang thing.
There's nothing wrong with having a car. We all need a car,
and
there's nothing wrong with having a nice car. We all like nice cars. We just got to figure out the right balance. But what, just out of curiosity, can you think of any other way you could turn that liability, your Audi, into an asset, something that pays you? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I just had this idea in the course of this conversation.
No, I don't know. That's what I would say. Sell it for cash, or like we said, trade it in. But trading it in is going backwards even further almost. So no.
Yeah,
I would
actually. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it. So the trade-in thing is the typical mainstream attitude to it. And once in a while you might get super lucky. I've traded in one vehicle my whole life. That was just recently, and I got lucky on that. I actually traded in for more than I purchased it a year before that. But that was a fluke because we're in this weird market, right?
Yeah.
Normally that just screws you. So the trade-in, I think you and I talked about, was just a probably a dead end in your particular case. But something that you might think about is, what if you were to find a buddy who's out of work who would be willing to drive that car in like an Uber scenario, where you get to get super creative. I mean, it's going to cost you because now you're letting somebody else drive your car. You've got insurance implications and so forth. I'm not even saying it's a good idea, but it's simply a way to say, well, here's something I have. Can I make that into an asset? What do I have to do mentally, gymnastically, to turn it into an asset instead of a liability?
It's funny you mentioned that, because I did look at that. Uber and those companies won't let you drive since it's a two-seater, and with all the restrictions right now. Okay. I did look at that at one point. I was like, what's another simple revenue stream that won't cost me any like mental energy that I can do robotically, and that's driving a car. Right. And that was that. I looked it up, but you can't because it's two-door. And that's where I was like, it's funny. I actually got this car because before I had a four-door, and I was doing Uber just to make extra money, running people back from downtown to the airport. And that was like my passive income stream, or actually be active in that sense. But it's more of a secondary stream coming in, that when I got this car, I was like, oh gosh, where's that extra money at? Yeah. And that was the start of the downfall.
I love that. But the fact that now that you just caught yourself in realizing something, an income stream is active versus passive. It's not to say that you shouldn't do things actively with your time.
Passively is easier.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, you need to build a lot of passive income streams that lead to a passive income river, which can float you through the rest of your life, right? And preferably earlier than later, right? We all would like to do that sooner. Before, a lot of people become millionaires by the time they're 60. But frankly, I wanted to be a millionaire when I was in my 40s, right? And so that just gives me 20 more years to do what I want with.
You're already 14 years ahead of the wave, though, right? Or 15 for men. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
So, but again, it's not super complicated. Some of it's luck, but a lot of it is just simple decisions. Like what you just said, was saying, oh, well, Uber's actually active income. That's time I'm trading. I'm basically giving my hours to Uber in exchange for dollars from Uber.
Yeah.
And that's not passive income. It's not saying it's a bad idea, but it's certainly not a passive income.
I could sell the Audi, buy 2 cars, give one to a buddy who needs a car, tell him that he's Ubering for me. I get 60% of the money for supplying the car. The other 40 goes to him.
Now you're talking like an entrepreneur.
Boom. Yep. I got a buddy who could fulfill that too.
Right. This might be the next iteration on the whole thing, right? So,
there we go. Get a Honda Civic or something. Yeah. Not an Audi.
Well, good. Let's take a quick breather here for a second. Think I was going to maybe talk after this about this book. Okay, so we've been talking about freedom. We're talking about time freedom, which is, again, sort of the drum I beat. I just got back from an hour up at the neighbor's wood shop with my kids on a Tuesday afternoon at 2:00. Right? How many dads can say that? Because most of them are stuck in some cubicle someplace.
They probably can't, because they're working their 9 to 5 and they can't get out of work.
They're slaves to the man, right? So again, that's what I want to focus on, is time freedom. And we've talked, to try to pivot a little bit, we've talked about this formula for passive income. Yeah. We talked about financial independence being the situation in which cost of living is less than your passive income. And you were asking me, well, all right, what is a guy who's just starting out? Like, what do you do about passive income? I mean, it's not like I've got, $250,000 stock portfolio or something. But I would like to talk about stocks because that is probably one of the most common, passive income streams there is, or at least long-term investment streams, right? And so I think it's worth discussing. So I started when I was, I think, 14.
Man, you started early.
But I started with like $100.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't very much because somebody somewhere had sent or had done like a school talk about the power of compounding interest, which blew my mind as a little kid. And it really is remarkable. And it's all based on time. And it's interesting to me that time, they say time is money, right? And it is. And I'm trying to break the cycle so that your time becomes yours. You're not having to trade your time for money. It's interesting on the flip side of this. On passive income, time equals money.
Yeah.
The longer time goes with a compounding interest portfolio, the more money you get. So I started with $100 as like a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And now I'm sitting $250,000 in the stock market with really not a whole lot added to it.
It's a pretty good return.
It's frightening.
That's
like
awesome.
That's the power of time.
I mean,
so the earlier you start, the more you get, right? So I would encourage you to look at that. And I would say start small. Start with $100.
I've actually seen something on this too. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but like currency exchange. I know there's like AI software out there right now that is essentially you can put in $500, it trades it for you, and then at the end of the month you come out positive.
All right. Well, it is too good to be true. I have no idea. I love the fact that you're bringing it up because everyone wants to chase after these shiny things, right? You might be right. There might be some currency exchange app that just magically makes you rich, but it doesn't sound right to me. And the reason it doesn't sound right to you or me is because it's probably not right.
Probably not right. Okay. Right? So I trust my gut on that one.
Trust your gut on this, right?
I didn't do it.
And here's something I would say from an investment perspective. Now there's a lot, talk about Robinhood and about
I was going to say there's
Bitcoin and all this kind of stuff. Though you got to be careful with those. And I think my rule for investing is if you can explain it to a 4-year-old, invest in it. If you can't explain it to a 4-year-old, don't invest in it. Now maybe I'm super old fashioned. Call me an idiot if you want to because it's not super sexy. I'm investing in whatever margins and blah blah blah. I don't understand that stuff.
Yeah,
I do not understand that stuff, and because I don't understand it, I don't trust it. What I invest in are actually index funds. Okay. So index funds are, I think, the world's greatest tool.
I'm a 4-year-old, so hit me with it.
So I'm going to explain an index fund to a 4-year-old. All right. Because this is really, really remarkable. The stock market is a collection of all the companies that are doing business, public companies that are doing business in America. Right.
Okay.
An index fund simply takes the average performance of all those companies, maybe 500 of them. You can get different index funds, maybe 500 of them, maybe 1,000 of them, maybe all of them. But it basically aggregates all those companies' performance and puts it in one big bucket, and it tracks the positive progression of all those companies.
Gotcha.
Right? This is different than your standard managed portfolio. Managed portfolios are sort of our parents' generation's investment. That's when you paid some bubba who sat in a really, really nice office in some downtown, glass building, managing your money for you, right? He's so smart. He's going to manage your money for you, and you're going to become wealthy passively.
It sounds like the average financial advisor that everybody hits. Oh, hey, you got time for a coffee and lunch?
Yeah, exactly. Financial advisors, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. They have their place.
They're the passive income guys when they get your money.
They are, right? And that's the thing about index funds. So Vanguard is famous for breaking the seal on managed funds.
Okay.
Vanguard started out saying, hey, we've been looking at the data. And all of these brilliant stock pickers, all these super, super technical bubbas who are out there picking stocks for other people's portfolios, when you actually look at the data, they do no better than the stock market at large. In fact, they often did worse. Once in a while, you get a strange anomaly where you get one guy who just got super lucky year after year after year after year.
For sure.
So everybody chased that. That was always the sort of, the touted claim is those are the stock pickers who you want to put your money with. But it turns out that was almost accidental.
Wow.
So there's a book called Random Walk Down Wall Street that describes all of this. And it's this is sort of the democratization of investments and of stock portfolios. It's called index funds, and it's what people are now putting their money in index funds and just following the rising tide of an aggregated sort of bundle or bucket of stocks rather than trying to put your money with a financial advisor who steers you down one particular lane and says, oh, I'm pretty sure that these international funds are going to be 10% better, blah, blah, blah. They might be right, but they might be wrong. And frankly, their track records don't prove them being wrong very often, right?
Okay.
So if I was going to start investing today, and by the way, personally, I'm about split half and half. I have half of my portfolio with an active manager, because that's actually how I started, sort of a vestigial thing. The other half is with index funds. Cool. It actually happens to be through Vanguard, but there's other funds that do that.
Gotcha.
And I think it's really powerful.
Yeah.
It's really powerful to realize that if you can't understand it, don't spend a bunch of money with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Because that's a bunch of the new kind of investment wave is like you mentioned earlier. It was like Bitcoin, Doge, you have NFTs, which do you know what an NFT is?
No.
Essentially, like we could take a picture of you and make it a motion graphic, and it's the only one we'd ever release, and then we turn it into a Bitcoin of its own. Where we
I'm just scared already.
Yeah, exactly.
I have no idea what you just said.
It's kind of like the artist way, but there's so many of these digital things that haven't really been proven that they're going to stay around that people are investing in, and that's kind of like what you were hitting at is like it doesn't sound safe. Right. This has lasted time. Right. Stick with it. Go with it.
Right.
And then where the track record lies is kind of where the best, chance of winning is.
It's a little bit like your Audi. I'm not saying that you shouldn't invest in Bitcoin or something that you thoroughly understand or are thoroughly passionate about, then by all means do that, right? But if you're looking for genuine passive income and you're trying to build your net worth and trying to get free from the cycle of working for a living, then you need to be smarter about it and not chase after every little shiny thing. Yeah. Because it'll eat you alive. Yeah. Right?
Don't chase the shiny
object. It preys on people like you. It's just like the Audi dealership. It preys on people like you. It says, I can't wait for this guy to come in and trade in his Audi, which we know is a liability. We want him to trade that sucker in, and we'll give him an even bigger liability. Yep. You're going to walk out with an even newer
and they're
Audi.
Like compound interest. Gotta love it.
And they're just going to wipe you out. They're going to mop the floor with you.
Not anymore.
Right? So when you look at that equation of financial independence, like you look at your cost of living, like the fact that you're already tracking your cost of living, and this is something I would emphasize to everybody. Like track your cost of living much more closely. In fact, I use this tool. I'm going to get super awkward here. In fact, it was not the very first episode. It was our screenshot or whatever. So this is a online or actually an app-based tracker that tracks all my spending. I just, I put all my bank accounts into it, just plugged in the passwords, and it sort of aggregates everything. It's not magic, but it just puts it all in one space. So I know, for instance, that I can look in here and say, well, what did I spend on, in September this month? I spent $4,524. Okay. I didn't know that until I just looked up right now. Yeah. And it tells me that, $2,000 of that was on this home.
And do you just link up all your bank accounts to it?
Yeah. Cool. Which is a little spooky because everybody's worried about privacy. But at this point, I've kind of given up. I mean, this is an Intuit.
Everything's digital these days. So, I mean.
Yeah, it's out there anyway. If it's all
paranoid, or you can start moving forward.
I mean, if you need to use a leather-bound notebook, tucked under your bed to do this, I don't care.
Warren Buffett
just
probably
do
does.
It. Whatever it is, just have it all in one place so what your cost of living is. You could tell me, oh yeah, in September I spent $4,208.
Gotcha.
Like that. The minute you know that is the minute those numbers begin to shift and reduce. Your cost of living suddenly goes down because you're not making sort of willy-nilly decisions. You suddenly say, you know what, maybe I don't need that $60 tent for the cat that I just saw on Facebook that looks so fun, but maybe I'll hold off until next month, right? Yeah. And as you do that, what you do is you actually free up some margin. You free up some extra dollars. Let's say it's $150 a month extra that suddenly you never had before or that you didn't have before, and now you do. That $150, you say, all right, that's going to my new index fund. I just created an online login with Vanguard or Stash or one of these companies, and now I'm putting that money into it.
Gotcha.
And I'm starting. It's only $100.
Yeah.
But it adds up fast.
And you got compound interest, and you got time working for you.
That's exactly right. Time's working for you instead of the other way around. Yeah. And now all of a sudden, if you get that equation right, then you free up your own time.
And your cost of living is probably going down because now you're aware and you're stashing away more. Plus, you don't have more liabilities that you're buying.
It's snowballing. Right? Yeah. You snowball this whole equation. All of a sudden, your cost of living is going down. Your passive income is going up. And all of a sudden, you're like, hey, I'm 44. What the hell just happened? I'm a millionaire. Yeah, this came out of nowhere. Like I said, I was surprised by it. but happily surprised. And it was, and like I said in the first episode, I was surprised but not shocked because I've been aiming at it for a long time. So when you hit the target that you've been aiming at all the time, it shouldn't completely blow you away.
Yeah. That's a big thing too, is like stay focused, I think, on a target rather than, let's keep moving a field goal. If you keep moving your field goal, it's hard to hit it.
Right. Yeah, this book here, the Your Money, Your Life, I can't recommend highly enough. In fact, I might even give you this copy. It's a bit old, but it doesn't really matter. It's the same basic concept. It's basically saying, hey, understand how much you actually value in life. This is not just a dollars and cents analysis, like you need to do this, you need to do that. It's more spiritual than that.
Okay.
It says, what matters in life? Does having a really, really big house with 87 bedrooms, is that really important?
Mike Tyson was.
Yeah, for some people it is. And if it is, all power to you, as long as you're achieving it in a healthy, productive way. Yeah. Right. And so what they're basically trying to say is, how much is enough for you? And I've had to wrestle with that too, because we all are victims of our ego and of commercials and this sea of capitalism that we swim in. But once you are, steering that boat, you realize, I don't need all these shiny things. I can have some shiny things because it's what makes life kind of fun.
For sure.
But as long as I'm in control of it.
Yeah.
And it's not eating me alive.
For sure. And
then that Audi sitting at the bottom of the driveway might be the reward for good decisions later on, instead of destroying you.
Yeah.
and turning you into a slave for the man.
Yeah, right? No, and I've looked at that several times too, of like, okay, my Audi cost me this much a month. Then I'm like, crap, if I would have kept my old car, I wouldn't be paying my monthly payment. And then times that by 10 or 12, that's like $4,000 a year that I could be going on a trip or having fun or experiencing something in life rather than
investing.
Yeah. Or rather than driving this car that, the same car that I'm not paying a payment on gets you from point A to point B.
Right.
It just blows your mind as like, oh my God, like that is such a liability rather than like, it's an attachment too. Yeah. It's holding me down rather than something that could let me be free and go travel and, like you said, experience life more than have the materialistic shiny objects.
Yeah. So I hate to beat this Audi drum, but let's just take it as an example. Let's say that you owe $11,000 on it. Okay. Right. Let's say that on the open market, because you completely polish it up, you got it detailed, you can do a super great ad. You can get, let's say you can get $9,000 for it.
Right? Geez, okay.
$9,000 because first off, you stop the bleeding, you stop the digging your hole. You got $9,000 in the bank. You still need to get around. We live in America. You can't really operate without a car, but maybe you could borrow somebody's. I mean, that would be super creative.
That would be.
But in the meantime, let's say you can buy just a Honda Accord for $3,500. That just gave you, $5,500. You now have something to do with. Mm-hmm. You could buy a trip. You could go to Costa Rica and blow $5,500.
And maybe you should. I'm not going to do that. No.
Maybe you should. Maybe you shouldn't. This is a decision. Now you've got a decision, and now you look at your net worth and say, what's the wise thing to do here?
Wise thing to invest the, what do we say, $5,500?
Yeah.
Into an index fund.
Yeah.
Based on what I just
right
learned.
There. Or it doesn't have to be all $5,500, but maybe you could start with, well, first off, you got to pay the $2,000 that you actually owed on top of it.
For sure.
So it's not going to be $5,500. But take some of it. Take half of it. Take half of your winnings, just as a sort of a rule of thumb. Take half your winnings and invest them.
Yeah.
Enjoy the other half. Like I'm not preaching, live like a monk.
Yeah. Well, if I want to do that, I go to a monastery.
Right,
but
but you can have a lot of fun on less than you think.
Yeah.
Once you break that cycle, once you realize, hey, I'm in control of this. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna dictate what is enough, and then ultimately, like, I live now in such a way that I can live like no other person later on. Right?
That's the
delayed
plan,
gratification.
Too. Yeah, for sure.
But it pays big dividends.
Yeah.
Right. So, well, good. Let's take a break there. I think we're running out of screen time. All right. So, what's the takeaway today? We sort of have gone back and forth today on what sorts of things we should do. I think one thing you could do is watch and like the other episodes. They're our first shot at it. They're not perfect. They're a little awkward, but the content is good.
It's really
Look
good.
at them, watch them. We have a playlist of action items, which you helped me build. The action items, I think, are really, really critical. If you can hit the action items and do these 5-minute homework assignments, it will change your life. I really, really guarantee it. It's changed yours, even in one session.
As simple as it was, after we filmed, we just like broke it down real quick, and Paul ran me through it as like a test, and to see a week later the shift is just insane. Yep. So, and the action items are, I mean, spot on. Yep. The videos kind of outline more of the history or like how it all works in a complex manner. And then the action items are straight to the point of, this is what it is. This is how you calculate it. Just going through and working with your numbers. Because like, kind of like we said this whole time, is the awareness and being aware of it. You're already starting to like throw away what's not working and build what is working.
Yeah. Yep. And along those lines, I think it's very important to realize that we're all in this together, right? Mm-hmm. If you can, as a viewer, put in a comment and help somebody else out. Tell us what your biggest liability is. What is your cost of living? I mean, frankly, at this point, why keep it a secret? What you can say to someone else may help them say, oh, that's exactly what I've got. Yeah. I've got an Audi A5 also, and it's also eating my lunch. Yeah. And maybe I can figure some clever way out and give you a tip, and you pass it on, to somebody else, and we pay it forward all together because we're all in this together. Yeah. And these are not super secret or particularly difficult concepts, but they're very hard to begin. But once you begin, it just snowballs forward, and you're free. Yeah. I love being free.
Oh, me too.
Be free with me.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So do that. Look at the channel, look at the other episodes, review the action items, put in the comments what your passive income is, if it is anything. Throw ideas out there. Let's all work on this together, and maybe someday we'll be having this conversation when all of us are millionaires, right?
Yeah, no, do it.
Right.
Get on a Zoom call, and then we're all like, hey, do you guys remember when we started this? So
it'd be great, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, sir. It was great.
Everybody, make sure you comment, like, and subscribe to this channel, and we'll keep building it. Sound good?
Sounds like a plan.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Cheers.